Dear Redditors, what was the craziest reason a teacher at your school got fired? In high school, fell for PE, our teacher took us canoeing. Instead of checking the weather, he brought 15 freshmen into the channel our school was on. A severe thunderstorm hit, and our teacher paddled safely back to school and left us teens in the water. We tied our canoes together and rowed back to school, but we were drenched and super late. Our teacher was just standing on the dock, not a care in the world. He got fired like 2 days later. Our high school art teacher got fired after someone found an old YouTube video of him painting with his ass cheeks. We held a protest to try to keep him around, but they fired him anyway. Threw a chair across the classroom, hitting a student in the process. I think she was going through a divorce or something, but it was talk of the town throughout the whole week. We never saw her again after that. She quit. She was the nicest teacher in the shittiest school in my area. Taught 10th grade history. My class was particularly very bad to her, though she also told me her other classes weren't great either. She was made fun of because though she was in her 30s, she had short and choppy gray hair. And her being nice all the time led to kids getting away with more than they should have. One day after a bad class, my class came in and started bullying her again. She had already clearly been crying, and that day she had enough. She spent that day telling us that she has a very rare form of brain cancer. Showed us pictures of her just a few years back, with her husband and deceased child. Even then, some of the kids in that class had no empathy and thought it poetic justice for a teacher to get cancer. That was her last day. I hugged her on the way out. I was a shy kid, didn't really talk much, but I wish I had said more. Unfortunately, she has since passed away. He was caught putting a camera under the girls' swimming changing room door. Year 6, grade 5. Edit. This was about 6 years ago, don't know what happened to him after he was fired. Not sure if crazy or dumb, but my teacher when I was in 3rd grade got fired for selling us Pokemon cards that she would confiscate from other classes during recess. She told us we could buy the cards, about $25, but we couldn't have them out during school hours. A professor at my college was placed on administrative leave because he was charged with participating in the Rwandan genocide and was deported shortly after. He ended up being found not guilty, although I think he's still in a Rwandan prison for denying that the genocide happened. Edit. To be more clear, his opinion was that the genocide was not a genocide, and that it was a civil war in which the Hutu were victimized as much as, if not more than, the Tutsi. She was involved in a murder. No, she didn't kill anyone. She was one of the last people that were seen with the victim. She was the victim's best friend. News reporters kept on showing up to my school to try to get any words they could from my teacher, and as you can imagine, it became a huge distraction for the students. It was sad. The case became pretty famous in my home state, and a law was created in the victim's name. Edit. The law called for bouncers at bars and clubs to be more thoroughly checked for any past criminal activity. My teacher's friend was murdered by a bouncer who was supposed to be helping her into a taxi after the bar closed. The bar owner didn't know that the bouncer had been a felon. I didn't really want to add too many details out of respect for my teacher because she was honestly a wonderful person, and we could tell how traumatized she was by the whole thing. A history teacher I had in high school gave us a lot of random documentary movie days, during which she would just sit in the back at her desk drinking tea. The year after I graduated, she had a movie day, and when the film ended, she didn't get up or do anything but sit there, eyes closed. Fearing the worst, some students went to the office and brought an administrator down who found she was passed out drunk. They found bottles in her desk. My kindergarten teacher picked me up by the neck and tossed me across the room. She wasn't actually fired, just not allowed to teach kindergarten again. Instead, she taught 2nd grade. She was my teacher that year, too. In her defense, odds are pretty good that I had it coming. Not my school, but one in my general area had an entire lunch period's worth of students watch a male teacher scream at his wife, female teacher in the same school, after catching her with the janitor, in school. A student teacher who was coaching cheer gave a girl pain meds, narcotic, without a prescription or permission from parents. She got fired. Never heard if she managed to get a teaching license after that. Edit, just to clarify, giving meds is usually not allowed because it's a liability issue. Everyone is perfectly allowed to bring their own pain meds that are over the counter or prescribed to them and take them, but the school can't dispense them. Also, the real issue here is that the pain meds were not over the counter and they were prescribed to the student teacher, not the cheerleader. It's pretty uncool to give a kid opioids without permission. Freshman year of HS, we kept having bomb scares. About once a month, we would have to evacuate while the police brought the bomb dogs to check out the place. Turns out it was one of our long-term subs. She got arrested, but don't know the end result. Our AP calculus teacher in high school had a mental break, ranted for an entire class period about some nonsense, then drank an entire bottle of salsa, stormed out, and never came back. They had a substitute for the rest of the semester, which was unfortunate since the sub wasn't a calculus teacher, so they were at a disadvantage for the AP test. He threw pencils at students. One day he threw a chair at a girl who annoyed him, serious anger management issues. And then they found the child porn on his computer at school. Rumor was that he had also been grooming one of the student aides. I haven't heard a thing about him since the year he disappeared. My middle school history teacher, Mr. Lewis, used to invite me and some of my friends, all girls, into his room before classes. Since otherwise we had to stay in the incredibly cramped hallway, this was desirable, especially when he let us play with Cleverbot on his desktop. Mr. Lewis was pretty weird. He only ever wore velvet suits with pocket squares, and sometimes he'd randomly start crying in the middle of class. Weirdest of all, he'd make us listen to his love poetry, dedicated to his dead wife, who we later learned did not and had not existed. In retrospect, that love poetry was definitely for us. Specifically, it was for one of us, my friend Ruth, who looked notably younger than your average 12-YO. He'd always ask her to write notes on the blackboard and stare at her while she did it. The rest of us noticed Ruth was Mr. Lewis's favorite, but it didn't strike us as that weird. Well, one day, it was only Ruth who got to school early. The rest of us didn't come till later. She went into Mr. Lewis's room, and I guess he tried something. Luckily, I don't think it got very far. He was put on leave. They brought him back a year later. Fun. It was in a Catholic monastery school not even 10 years ago. My homeroom teacher prevented the suicide of a nun and got fired for it. That's literally all the info we pupils got at the time. Apparently, you can't do anything right in this world. A really cool teacher of mine put on the 2016 Deadpool movie in class after some convincing from the class. Anyways, some kid snitched, no idea who, and because the movie was rated R, she was fired. She was really cool too, and I felt pretty bad. Our teacher was a chronic liar and lied about having a master's and a degree. Funny thing is, she actually did have a relevant degree that would have got her the job. Other lies include dating Brad Pitt, being an ex-gang member, and even being a multimillionaire, but just enjoying teaching. Had a history teacher show a bunch of 7th graders drunk history. The goody two-shoes of the class narked and told her mom, who complained to the school. He was fired by the end of the week. He left his laptop open in class while teaching, and a student found child porn on it while trying to play a prank. Cops promptly found stashes of the stuff at his house when they investigated further, was arrested and is now in prison as far as I know. He taught students aged 11 to 16, organized a student choir, and was even the main teacher for some of the younger classes. This was well publicized in the local media at the time. Not just a vile nonce, but a fucking dumb one at that. 25 years ago at my all-boys Catholic high school, a priest was accused, caught molesting a student. Of course, this wasn't a firing offense for a priest back then. It was just hushed up. The guy was creepy as hell. Earlier this year, I read about him in the paper. A fresh round of allegations. He was allowed to keep on going for another 25 freaking years. Back when I was in high school, I had a history teacher who looked like Santa Claus, and for the most part was a cool and funny dude. He made jokes most of the class, and kept it pretty entertaining while still being informative. Well, one day, there was this tall, curly-haired 9th grade kid who was being loud and obnoxious in the hall, and so Santa teacher went out and asked him to stop as the kid was disrupting his class. Kid didn't listen, so he stepped out of the class and asked him nicely to stop talking so loud in the hallway. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the kid said to him, but whatever it was, caused my teacher to lose it, and punched the kid right in the eye, and held him against the locker, like the stereotypical bully does to the nerd in TV shows and movies. Kid ended up with a black eye and broken nose, and my history teacher was soon fired after that. Turns out my teacher had a bit of a mean streak that popped up every blue moon. Apparently, he almost fought a bus driver who was about to leave a student who was running late from their last class. While not necessarily the incident that got them fired, there was a time when one of the science teachers, new for that year, told a student that if he didn't like how they were teaching, then he should go the office. He got up and started walking for the door. They got in front of him and shoved him back into the room. A few months later, we suddenly had a different science teacher. On a Friday night, a gym teacher, girls' basketball coach, purposefully threw a bong out of the passenger side window of his pickup truck. He was in the passenger seat, his wife was driving, causing it to smash on the hood of an on-duty sheriff in a marked Crown Victoria. Again, he meant it to smash on the hood of the cop car. He got out trying to assault the cop but was quickly subdued, tased. Never saw him again after that. He was a cool guy. Edit. This was at a stoplight. Didn't get fired but should have. 9th grade, room of angsty teens gets a new English teacher. Mrs. a redacted. This English teacher likes 3 things. Jesus, pouring pills down her autistic son's throat, and Anne Rice. During class, when talking about an assignment, a couple students talked about a student who attempted suicide, and the teacher had enough. She got up and explained how to properly cut your wrists to a whole class. What an educational experience. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards and upvotes. I rarely bring up this teacher, but this AskReddit seemed the appropriate time. Also, I removed the name. A maths teacher got in a fist fight with the art teacher because the maths teacher stopped the guys who were doing art from leaving his maths class to take their state exam. The exam was the Junior Cert Art Practical. This was in Ireland. Edited for extra clarity and more background info. The union intervened and he got his job back. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to check out the video on screen. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily Reddit stories.